Hi, I'm Jim, and welcome back to Urban Legends. Rounding out the March bike rides while it's still cool in Orlando. Um, let's just get into it. You're about to hear me talking about forgetting my coffee.
Alright. I don't really have time to stop and get one now. Oh well. I remember my breakfast, so that's good. What the dude?
And so, if you've never broken a spoke before, it's not fun. Like, I don't have the tools to fix it, and you can't even really fix it on the road. I mean, you can fix a spoke, but you can't really true your wheel, because when the spoke breaks, the rim of your wheel basically bulges right there, and every time that bulge comes around, it hits your brake. So I'm kind of in a bind here. Now I'm going to be late for work. I had to unhook my back brake and ride in with a wobbly tire. Not great for the wheel either, so it's probably time that I get a new wheel. So I'm on my way home here, not riding, obviously. So I gotta put my bike on the bus. Good practice, I guess, for the summer. I'll explain why in a minute, but this is a performing arts center. And then that building with the dome there is Orlando City Hall. There's a really nice plaza in between the two buildings, and I was hanging out there last weekend waiting for someone. And yeah, it's a really nice place to hang out. The only thing that it's really missing is like a kiosk with food or beer, wine, whatever. And Performing Arts Center has these crazy plans to build this amphitheater out there and sort of take up all that space and dedicate it to programming, so it would go from basically a public place to a private place, which is unfortunate. I hope it doesn't happen. Yeah, this is a really quick bus ride that's, I don't know, it's about the same amount of time as riding my bike. It's not really, the only inconvenient part about it is having to wait for a few minutes for the bus, but otherwise it's fine. And I would imagine when it gets hot out, that's what I'm going to be doing most of the time, is taking the bus. The stop's not really that far from my house, but yeah, people think of like Florida being summer all the time, but there's spring is basically like early February to early March. But we're just starting to get into that pattern where the afternoon thunderstorms are happening very occasionally. But yeah, this is a drama-free morning, riding to work. Yeah, it's just the usual neighborhood stuff, quiet streets. Really can't complain. It is kind of interesting though, because this past week, and I don't have any video for it, but on my way to work, evenings where I had to work late for community meetings, and so the following morning I went in like an hour later, just because it was almost, by the time I ate dinner and got home, it was almost 9 o'clock. So there's significantly more traffic at 9 a.m. than at 8 a.m. and it's still not a lot, but I was surprised to see that 2 mornings in a row. Yeah, and that intersection back there is one of the least fun parts of the ride. And this is funny, I left this in because this is the first time this has ever happened to me, that I've come up behind a school bus on my bike. And I really wasn't sure what to do. I mean, I guess you just follow the rules of the road, right? So that's what I did. But, I think the stereotype outside of the US is that these things are everywhere all the time. And I rode one briefly as a kid, when I was in grade school, but most of the time I walked to school or rode my bike. And I've never lived anywhere as an adult where school buses are common, because they're just really not common in cities. Most kids are expected to either walk to school or to get a ride. If they don't want to walk, and their parents drive them. But yeah, there are not a lot of school buses around here, and my kid has never been on a school bus. Like they took one for a class trip one time. They took the kids to a museum, and that was a big deal. But otherwise, yeah, she's never been on a bus as a regular part of her school day. I feel like I need to keep talking through this, otherwise you guys are going to hear my dog snoring in the background. She really doesn't like to be in a different room. I can't be by myself. Yeah, the more that I ride in this part of town, the less I really like these brick streets. They're not like they're great for traffic calming, but they're not fun to ride a bike on. And it's kind of like that's why I appreciate Livingston, even though there's a lot of traffic on it. Livingston Street. It's at they made like a concrete shoulder for bikes, and you'll even see sometimes like people will drive with the right tires on the concrete. Man, she's snoring so loudly. But yeah, the brick's not a lot of fun. And yeah, there's no way to avoid it, because the streets that are paved, there's just too much traffic on them. But that's why they're paved, because they're high traffic. So I don't know. There's no cheap and easy solution, except that the city is working on this bicycle loop, which is really nice. Like I'm not complaining about the infrastructure. Just for me personally, it's not really convenient as a way to commute, because it adds 5 to 10 minutes to a morning commute, which is like a mile or two in terms of cycling. And I'm not that young anymore. I don't have that kind of energy, and especially when it's hot out, it's not something I'm interested in doing. But yeah, it's also pretty interesting too, that the city's sort of project development pipeline, there's something like 12,000 new residential units in the pipeline, like expected over the next decade or so. That's probably going to be something like 25,000 people, and that's more people than live downtown right now. I'm hearing some unfortunate things about what they plan to do with the downtown busway, but I need to research that more. I haven't seen anything definitive on it yet. Yeah, this is really awkward. And I wasn't sure. I don't want to go on the sidewalk here because there are people walking, and I just there's curb cuts and stuff, and I don't really like that. But I decided to transition here because of the shadows, and I don't want to get caught in a situation where someone's going from shadow to brightness or vice versa and doesn't see me. So yep, so this is the transition to the path. So that part I was just riding on is the trail gap, basically. And it's, as far as I know, it's in design. Even if the design is finished, I don't think it's funded. I don't know if that's something that the city intends to pay for on its own, but it's definitely not in the tip. So we shall see. And this is really it's a nice bit of infrastructure. It's great, I guess, if you're trying to get back into the neighborhoods off to the right of the screen. But if you look to the left, there's a giant sound wall for the 408 expressway. So you're really this whole route is entirely residential, and you're about to see in a minute that it's a different kind of residential. And then on the left, there's just absolutely nothing. So you're really out there. So, oh yeah, this killed me. Like the weather was great in theory. It was 77 degrees and really low, like 24% humidity, which is super unusual. And there's even a fair amount of shade, but this is an uphill grade for like almost a mile. It's not really steep. It's only like 3 or 5%, but you start to feel it after a while. And yeah, and you can see on the right now, it's just a cemetery. And it's a huge cemetery. I'm riding past this thing for like a solid 6 or 7 minutes. Yeah, still going uphill. Yeah, I was definitely sweating, and like there's shade interspersed with sun, and like this time of year, the sun is starting to get really strong, and you feel it even when it's not hot and humid. The sun gets you. Yeah, you can see still on the left side, there's just nothing but that expressway and the sound barrier. It's a really unfortunate location for the expressway, and then to kind of double down on it with this trail. Like I understand why it was done. It's because the right-of-way existed. Like everything up to the right edge of the sidewalk is part of that right-of-way. And yeah, here you can see it. I was taking the red line, the InDesign part on my own, and then the purple line on the bottom, Anderson Street. That's where I am right now. So I think that's the 15, which also stops at the other bus stop that I was waiting for on the March 8th portion of this video. Yeah, still residential, still nothing on the left, and at least it's flat here. That part's nice. But yeah, there are a lot of intersections to cross, and too many, I would say. And the way they have, I think they call it a Miami curb, but the sort of gutter is concave, and there's no easy way to transition from the street to the path, because it's just a big bump every time. You almost need like mountain bike tires to ride this. All right, now we're transitioning to McGuire Airport, and like most of this part of the route is past the executive airport. And this was a real dick move, because they weren't actually doing any work, and there's another truck also blocking the sidewalk on the other side. This is a really tight squeeze. So, and this is hairy. Like, the light's green for me, but I don't like it because that's an off ramp for an expressway, and no one's looking. No one's expecting a bicycle. There's a plane landing. But yeah, there's just this part of the route, and I mentioned this in an earlier video. There's no shade out here, and it's freaking hot. Even like on this day with no humidity, 77 degrees, the sun is just brutal. I was sweating it out for sure. But yeah, this airport kills me because it's 900 acres basically in the middle of the city, where no one lives, and like the economic value of it's questionable. I mean, it should be a neighborhood of 40,000-50,000 people, and it isn't. It's just basically a black hole, and not only that, but it disrupts the circulation of the entire city. Like, nothing can go through it. No cars, no bikes. So everything has to go around it, which just creates more traffic and makes it more difficult for anybody on foot or on bike to get from the north side to the south side. So this is a little bit of a weird transition. I don't know what they're going to do about that permanently with the storm drain raised like that. You can't take that at speed. And then another kind of little weird transition. I don't know why, if that's because of the right-of-way width, but here's another trail gap, and this is the part of the road that's owned by FDOT, so the city can't really mess with it. I know there are plans to fix that connection, but it's not going to be until FDOT does road work here. And then you got to do this little crazy transition around that knee wall, and then we get back onto the trail. And this is another little, I mean, that other gap is only like, I don't know, 50 meters or something like that. But we're going to come up on another gap in a minute that's more like 200. And see, this is really, design-wise, is silly. Like, either the stop bar needs to be behind the path or in front of it, because people can't see when they're turning, so that they pull out, right? Like, the path should really be moved back from the intersection, so that people in cars can turn without being in the trail. So there's this this is a big dead mall on the right. I say dead, but it's still open. There's just really not much in it. It's really like there's a movie theater just off to the right there, and that's probably the busiest part of the whole mall. But it's being torn down. I think they're just finalizing negotiations with the department stores because they own the land underneath the department stores separate from it. And yeah, we're going up on the purple side on the right-hand side of the screen, and it's about to terminate into the little gold gap right there. So you can see the path turn right here, and it just stops. And the intention is that it goes straight. That parking lot would become part of the path, and then it's maybe about 200 meters before it picks up the rest of the trail. That's the gap. But you can see all the construction going on to the right. So as the whole mall area redevelops, I mean, like, apartments are going up there like crazy, and they have been for the last 5 or 6 years. As that stuff gets built out, those developers build their section of the trail. So I'm guessing that like in the next 2 years it'll be finished. But that's kind of interesting. That little sidewalk that loops around there is just there for the bus stop, which is cool. But yeah, these apartments went up, I want to say, like 4 years ago. But they were also part of the mall property. Because there were a bunch of like outbuildings that were sort of across the parking lot from the mall. That's about it. Yeah, whenever I hear people complaining about apartments in their neighborhood, that sort of like NIMBY knee-jerk reaction, I always think to myself, like, the part of town that I live in, there's always apartments under construction, and you never hear people freak out about it. Like, I would imagine that if you had a big apartment building going on right next to your house, it might be a problem, but no one ever really suggests that. Anyway, until next time, I'm Jim. This is Urban Legends. Thanks for watching.